you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre is back up in Mont-Tremblant. Pierre, is that where you are?
No, I'm in southeastern Quebec right now.
Oh, okay. Nice. How was the ride up, my friend?
Painless.
Nice.
Painless.
Good. Until you get some thunderstorms now, though, you were
We're
saying.
getting crushed by some weather right now, and I apologize if it comes into the background of our hour-long event, but it's raining actually pretty hard right now. So
well, you know what? I think a lot of people in North America pretty much right now could use that. Wouldn't mind a little downpour because, man, it is a scorcher everywhere. Pierre, last I checked, I'm in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It said 94 degrees, and I'm right by the water. So
when I left the rink this morning, it said 92, and that's in Bedford, Mass.
Yeah,
so we skated early, and when I left, it was 92. So it's obviously smoking hot.
Good stuff. Well, hey, you know what was smoking hot yesterday, Pierre, was the NHL trade market, but today, zilch, quieted down. I think a lot of people were hoping the action would continue, but nothing so far. But we are going to look back on a specific trade from yesterday, and that would be the Jacob Markstrom to the New Jersey Devils deal that happened yesterday with our good friend Eric Francis from Sportsnet Calgary, who'll be joining us shortly in about 10 minutes. So we'll get his take on that, what it means for the Flames now, what it means for the Flames going forward. And I think more specifically, Pierre, I want to look into the goalie situation in Calgary now because they've got two pretty young goaltenders manning the pipes now in Vladar and Wolf. And will they want to go forward with that, or could they bring a veteran in? So that's something I want to get Eric's take on when we bring him on. But Pierre, obviously tomorrow, Game 6, Oilers, Panthers. Not much huge news from either side today coming out. Really not much going on. Pierre, in the past, we've only had one day between these games, regardless of how far the travel was. I'm wondering, though, with you as a coach, if you had an extra day like these coaches have right now, how would you utilize it?
Well, less is more for the players. The extra guys would all skate unless a player really wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. Chances are you don't make them go to the rink on the off day and the extra day. They probably, Florida that is, probably had a skate or a little stretch out or whatever before they got in the plane. Maybe Edmonton did the same thing yesterday. But, these are massive amounts of miles. I think the biggest thing is just make sure your mind is fresh and ready to go. The bodies are – you can do what you can do, but most of them are beat down pretty good. Yeah. This is a hard time of the year. And I like a lot of what some of the journalists are saying, not all of them, but some of them. This has gone on too long. That big break between the Eastern and Western Conference final and the Stanley Cup final, that took a lot of the steam out of this. And now you see with the travel how hard it's become for the players, for the fans, for everybody, for the coaches. So it's unfortunate. Everybody's going to second guess it, but it has been to date a positive series. It's been good. And for Edmonton to have done what they've done, getting back in after being down 0-3, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
I mean, Pierre, I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it right now. On that note, the ratings are not good right now, both in Canada and the United States for the Stanley Cup final. Do you think what you just mentioned there is having an effect on that?
It could. It's hard in the States when you have a Canadian team. Most people in the United States couldn't identify where Edmonton, Alberta is on a map. I mean that, and no disrespect. It's not a very frequented place unless you're in the, oil business or you're, you have family and friends there. You're not going to Edmonton. Mm-hmm. So that's just the reality of it. The truth is, though, this has been a good series. The celebration, I love what you said yesterday. I love the way Michael Farber acknowledged you about seeing Connor McDavid in real time. I think that's one of the real treats about this whole thing is being able to see how great he really is. And you can remember, and it's going to be awesome long-term because he's got so much time and so much greatness left in his career.
Well, Pierre, you don't have to comment on this, and I know you probably don't want to. You can stay neutral here. But I just want to say on that note, I think And I don't know whose decision it is or how it works. I don't know the logistics behind any of this, but I just think that they need to look at that and realize that they can do a better job of marketing it. Like I wake up here in the States yesterday, right? And ESPN has got that show First Take. And they must have gone in 20, 25 minutes before they even mentioned the Stanley Cup final. And this is the network that is carrying the Stanley Cup final, that is witnessing what you just mentioned, the magic of Connor McDavid going on, sort of a breakout party. And you have a superstar here to market that. I hope in this offseason that they reevaluate how they're promoting between games or after games or leading into in terms of that, because I just think that the game and the networks are missing out on a great opportunity here to forget just an amazing, legendary hockey player. This is going to go down as a legendary athlete, when all is said and done. And you've got him. Like he's part of what you have, what you built up, and what you paid all this money for to have the rights to broadcast. You got to get him more front and center right now. And maybe they just think that hockey can't lure that audience in, like in the States. I don't know, but you can't know until you don't try. And when you have a tool like a Connor McDavid to attract the general audience, I think you really have to utilize it a little better.
Well, the Canadian markets have a lot of good players. Connor McDavid's one of them. Austin Matthews is a pretty special player.
Mm-hmm.
He had almost 70 goals this year.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah.
Special players. I mean, there's a lot of special players in the league. I think the league has gotten better at that in terms of what they've tried to do. What bothers me is, and it's nobody's fault at the networks. I get it. Basketball ratings are double what hockey ratings are. I totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest story shouldn't have been who the LA Lakers are hiring as a basketball coach.
That's what I'm saying.
It shouldn't be.
There's no more basketball games, then switch.
That's not a knock on JJ Redick, who I know worked at ESPN. I know that. I get it. He's going to be the coach of I get that. I get the politics. I get the whole thing.
Yep.
But his next big important decision is going to be, what's he going to do with LeBron James?
Uh-huh.
And it probably won't be his decision. It's probably going to be, management and ownership's decision. But that's the only frustrating thing. But no, McDavid's special. We all know that. There are a lot of special players. It's exciting. If they ever force a Game 7, then I think you'll see a lot of things change.
Yeah, I think, I loved what we were talking about, looking back at the different legends of the game with Michael Farber yesterday. And again, thank you to Michael for joining us. That was a fabulous interview. Got a lot of compliments on it. Really enjoyed it. But I want to go back, Pierre, and I was only a young teenager then, but you were in the business or just getting into it. When Gretzky came to LA, did you notice a concerted effort by the league and the networks in the United States to promote the game more and promote that he had arrived?
He changed the whole landscape. The reason why there's a team in Anaheim, and I believe the reason why they were so excited to go into San Jose is because Wayne Gretzky did such an amazing job in LA. He was an amazing ambassador for the sport. And obviously the fact that they went to the final in 93 didn't hurt either. And you look at some of the players that were there. I mean, forever, LA had the biggest thing was a Triple Crown line.
Right.
It was a huge thing. It was gigantic. And then the Triple Crown line kind of dissipated and Gretzky comes in and all of a sudden the Kings are real. They're for real. They're just not a one-line team. They're legit. Mm-hmm. And Wayne was fantastic. I wasn't on the media side then. I was definitely on the coaching side. And
yep.
He did tremendous stuff. Tremendous.
Did you notice more of a buzz, different cities you traveled then about the game, about the NHL?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing back then you had that was going on, Rangers were good. They won the President's Trophy. Chicago was really good, and they were rivaling the Bulls. And Sports Illustrated and the Kings were really good. Even though they didn't win the cup back then, they eventually won it later on.
They got there, yeah.
One of the cool things is Sports Illustrated, I think, had a newspaper or a magazine headline that said why the NHL is hot and basketball is not. Something along those lines.
I remember that. Yep.
Something along those lines.
Yep.
And it was legit. I know we played Chicago Blackhawks in '92 in the final, and the Bulls were a big story, but they weren't as big as Belfour and Chelios and Roenick and Goulet, even though they had Jordan and Pippen. They weren't as big as the Blackhawks. They just weren't. So I think it happens in different situations, but Wayne was a big thing. I'm just telling you, Jimmy, Wayne was a big thing when he left Edmonton to go to LA. That was a big deal.
Well, Pierre, I mean, I remember, just as I went into high school and then college, when ESPN originally had the games and Gary Thorne and Bill Clement were doing the games, it was doing pretty well then. Like that was must-watch TV a lot, and it felt like it was heading the right direction. So then when, I saw ESPN get the game back recently, I'm like, oh, well, I think they can do it. And I feel like it hasn't caught that momentum yet, and I don't know what it needs to do it. And I wonder too, Pierre, just if the advent of social media and the constant onslaught of so much sports information and so many different sports, other sports are starting to come up the ranks, soccer, what have you. I wonder if that's kind of made it more difficult for the NHL to kind of get back to solidifying its spot.
Hey, women's sports are huge.
And women's sports.
Women's basketball is massive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the collegiate level.
Yeah.
I know Caitlin Clark's a huge story. I get it. I totally get it. And everywhere she goes, it's Spoffo, ratings and tremendous sales for tickets. But women's sports have grown tremendously since I started in the NHL. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. But I can just tell you, you look at the growth of their sport and their number, it's pretty significant. So right. That's good. I think that's great. The other thing too is college football ratings and college basketball ratings. They've become juggernauts, massive. And I don't want to say it's because of gambling, but I think gambling is part of that. I think it's a pretty significant part of it.
Yeah. Well, obviously hockey's partnered up with a lot of gambling
now you see, so hockey will grow because of that.
Yeah.
We've got a sponsor, Betway, that's right. Their business.
Good segue, my friend.
But I would just say that's going to be part of the growth of hockey.
Uh-huh.
I told you the story once. I was running a practice in Hartford and I was skating around. I see this new sideboards and it said Foxwood Casino Hotel. So I go to one of our salespeople that I saw afterwards. I go, that's really cool. Foxwoods is becoming a big entity in the state of Connecticut. And he said to me, yeah, it was really good till it lasted. The league told us we couldn't have it up for the game tonight. So it just shows you how much it's changed in 25 to 30 years, how much it's really changed.
Well, you mentioned Betway, our sponsor, so let's tell you about them right now. Let's pull it up right there. Betway is the leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan that QR code right in front of you there if you're watching, and you can go join the action. But remember, you must be 18 plus, and please play responsibly. All right, Pierre, we're going to be getting Eric Francis on shortly right now. We didn't really I want to get your take on that trade before we get to Eric to kind of set it up. We didn't have much of a chance to get into that yesterday because we had such an amazing long interview with Michael Farber. But when you look at that, I mean, it's kind of something we all expected. It wasn't a surprise at all. But I guess my first question to you, and then you can get into the nitty-gritties of the lineup. Do you think Calgary's done? Or are there going to be more bodies moved out to continue to, get this rebuild in the full motion?
I don't know how many more. Elias Lindholm is gone. Noah Hannafin's gone. Marksham's gone. I don't see many more going out. I think this is, Craig Conroy putting the new general manager, obviously in Calgary, putting his own stamp on things. So I think they're in for a long, steady, I hope, rebuild. Ball's a good, useful player for defense. It's something they need, especially after they lost Hannafin. I mean, Hannafin's a pretty substantial blow. But they're in for a long, steady rebuild, I hope, in Calgary, because they're going to have to. They're not going to be able to keep up with Vancouver and Edmonton right now. And I know Eric's coming on, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. But this is just a long, steady rebuild, I think, for Calgary. And I think that'll be great. You can't like, I know people all have their own historical perspective on this. What happened with Johnny Gaudreau, left for nothing? What happened in the Tkachuk trade? I understand. I get it. Everybody's saying the cap. That there's other reasons why, that these things happen. Elias Lindholm has moved out of town. You start looking at all the players that have been moved out. Conroy comes in. He's inherited not very much. They got work to do. They have work to do there.
Okay, so what I'm looking at here, I've got the lineup right, and I was looking, kind of studying it before we got on here. And the one thing, so you're going into a rebuild, but the one thing that strikes me is I look at the top of their salary chart in the forward position, right? And of course, you've got Jonathan Huberdeau, who's there for a while, and he's coming in. He's 31, $10.5 million cap hit, and then you've got Kadri at 33. He's got, let's see. So Huberdeau's got how many more years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he goes in at 7 more years, Pierre. And then you've got 5 more seasons of Kadri at 33 at 7 a year. And then if you go down on the defense, you've got a 30-year-old in Mackenzie Weegar who's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more years at 6.2.
Did you hear what I said before? Long, steady slog. That's what this is going to be to rebuild this. So
we saw Markstrom kind of hit that sweet spot of he's 34, he's going to be 35 soon. He doesn't want to stick around for that, right? And that was one of the reasons he wanted to leave. And he said, and it was fine. The team understood. What if these guys come to them and say, hey, we're kind of on the tail end, on the back 9 here. I don't know if I want to be around for this long, steady rebuild slog, as you put it. If that happens, I just wonder, is Conroy in a tough position? Like, how does he move those contracts if they ever came to him?
He was in a tough position when he got the job. I think Eric Francis should answer those because he's in the dressing room with those guys all the time.
Well, let's bring him in right now and talk about that right now, because there are a lot of question marks going forward with the Calgary Flames. Eric is joining us. He is in the car, and he did request just audio, so we won't get to see his handsome face here on the eye test. He always does pass the eye test, though. I'll give him credit. Eric, what are you doing? How you doing, buddy? Oh, sounds like he's going. Oh, you there, Eric? He might be going through some tunnels in Calgary.
There are no tunnels in Calgary.
Some bad reception. All right, we'll see if we can get Eric in a bit. If we can fix that, we'll get his reception fixed there. He'll try again. So that's just one of the things. Yeah, we'll bring that up with him, Pierre. But I was just looking at it like he does. This is going to be. We've seen some other rebuilds. I think of the Rangers, Pierre, where they were able to accelerate that a little bit. And obviously it helped when Artemi Panarin says, I'm not going anywhere else but New York. That helped that. But I think you're right. Because of those contracts, it's exactly what you called it there. It's just going to be long and difficult. And I also wonder, and I want to talk to Eric about this too. Obviously, there's the Edmonton-Calgary rivalry. You look at Edmonton's making the playoffs every year right now. They're in the Stanley Cup final. They still could be the Stanley Cup champions. How much more impatient does that make the Flames fans if they go on and pull off this comeback and win?
Well, they're in a tough neighborhood now. We talk about that a lot with the different divisions. Vancouver's not exactly a sleeping team either. They're a real team. I think Anaheim's going to be vastly improved. LA is probably going to be improved. San Jose will be. They're not going to be great, but they'll be improved. Vegas is not a bad team, Jimmy. I mean, they're really tough. I haven't even talked about Seattle. Don't know where they're going to really be next year because it's kind of a roster that's, going like this right now. But they're in a tough neighborhood, Calgary. They're in a really tough neighborhood.
So that's going to be interesting. We'll ask Eric all those questions. Pierre, just bouncing around the league. We'll talk a little bit more. One
thing to you. I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
At some point, you know that I'm not on social media, and you provide me with lots of different snippets from it. At some point, do people start feeling guilty after they make up tons of rumors about players being traded or about contracts being done or about guys going here or guys going there? Has anybody ever held accountable for those things?
Not much anymore, Pierre.
No. Okay.
And here's the interest, and this is kind of where I was going to go. So great minds think alike. I was going to go to the Ottawa Flyers rumors that are going around now. By all accounts, they are talking, so nobody's denying that. But here's in getting to what you're saying here, all of a sudden you just get people throwing darts against the wall as to what players are involved. And the thing that bugs me the most, Pierre, and you know me, I do my due diligence. If I'm going to mention a name, I'm going to make sure that it's in there, that it's just not some random name that I'm throwing up. This guy's involved and I don't know it for sure. These are players' lives. These are human beings. They have families. And how many times nowadays, as was the case yesterday, where I don't know if it was somebody yesterday who was involved in all the movement yesterday. I remember, I forget who it was, said that they found out through social media that they were being traded. That happens a lot, unfortunately, now. It's because it's just the nature of the business. But you start throwing names out there without doing the research, without even trying to see if it makes sense cap-wise, if it makes sense for each team. And it really, I don't know. I don't know where everything's going right now, Pierre, but I'm with you. Nobody holds them accountable. And look, yesterday I was tipped off and I'm on some teams that are interested in Linus Ullmark, and I stand by the ones that I tweeted. And at the time, I got shot down by a lot of people from different fan bases saying, oh, they didn't want Linus Ullmark. You don't know what you're talking about. And of course, then today, I'm not going to say the person's name, but a certain other reporter reports it as if it's his, as if he was the original one to report this. And that happens so much right now, Pierre. So I'm with you. There needs to be more accountability out there when it comes to rumors, and especially around the draft, free agency, and the deadline when it's basically the silly season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you view things in life, but if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. Just own up to it. But don't keep throwing stuff out there as if you didn't say that.
Yeah.
If you got it wrong, you got it wrong. Just say it. You got it wrong.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's okay. But we got a lot of guys. Like I'm telling you, I'm getting so many calls. Is this true? I'm like, not that I'm aware of, but I don't.
How many of those did I send to you in the last 48 hours?
But that's okay. You're doing your work.
Yeah.
I get it. And not that I'm aware of. No, I don't think so. That's some of my wife goes, who are you talking to? And I tell her, she's like, oh, okay. I don't know. I guess my biggest thing is Shane Pinto signed in Ottawa or not?
He is. I apologize for not. I mean, I thought he had 1 year left, right? Or no?
Pinto needs a contract. Did he sign a contract? Is he signed?
He is signed. No, he's an RFA.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For some reason I thought he won up on 1 year already. But
no, he's an RFA.
Okay. And his name is being thrown around in those Flyers Senators rumors. And everyone I've spoken to that would have inside knowledge on that has said that's not true whatsoever.
I'm just asking the question because I've heard so many different things. And I'm going, how do these people know all this? Because I know one thing. When you're doing contracts with players, there's the player side and the team side.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time it gets to the league side is when the deal's consummated.
And the papers are put through.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's only one party or another party that could be leaking.
Right.
Or the third entity is
the media
making stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think the problem is, Pierre, is people, they take little things and they sort of snowball it and jump to conclusions with it. Right. I think with the Pinto thing, you look at it, the issues that happened last year with the whole, it wasn't him, but the gambling thing and his suspension. I see people trying to use that as a reason for them to throw his name in these rumors. It's not a reason. He's either in the room, he's either in the trade discussions or he's not. What happened last year or any other, element of this, it doesn't matter. It's black and white. He's either being in these discussions right now or he's not. And by all accounts, I have not gathered that his name is part of whatever deal it could be consummated soon by the Flyers and the Senators. So, I think, like I said before, these are human beings. What do you think Pinto's thinking when he sees this? What's his first move going to be, right? He's going to go right to the GM, to Staios or somebody with the team, order his agent, who will then go to the GM and be like, what the hell is this? And then that becomes an issue, right? And it's...
The best one was Brady Tkachuk.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Don't get me going, Pierre.
The Brady Tkachuk one was really good.
Okay, another thing you thankfully for your sanity do not listen to is Boston Sports Talk Radio. And the people on Boston Sports Talk Radio just, I don't know if they're just in complete denial, or B, they don't understand English, or C, they just don't care. But Staios is now twice, right? Twice has come out and denied these rumors about Brady Tkachuk and said he is going nowhere. He did it once during the season around the deadline. He did it recently 2 weeks ago. And yet there are people that I work with in this city that continue to insist that the Bruins are in talks with the Ottawa Senators to acquire Brady Tkachuk, and that he could be involved in a potential Linus Ullmark deal. And I just don't get how you can have the gall to say that after a GM flat out says he's not in it.
I don't know. I'm just asking. I only started this because I get, today I was traveling. I was in the car for about 4.5 hours. So I got a lot of different calls and found it really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I just, why would Ottawa trade Brady Tkachuk? It makes no sense. I mean, you worked in that market, Pierre. You know how big he is to that team and what he means to that team in that market to keep that fan base going. So I just can't see it. Yeah. But looking around, I mentioned Linus Ullmark, Pierre. And again, yesterday I reported that the Red Wings are a team that has inquired. I didn't say they're in talks or anything. I was told they inquired. They looked into it. If you're Detroit, okay, you've got those goalies coming. The young guys coming. A lot of people have questioned, and I think this is a valid question. Does it make sense to take on Ullmark, even if it's for 1 year, with those guys coming?
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of pressure for them to make the playoffs.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot of pressure. Again, we talk about neighborhoods. The Atlantic Division's a tough neighborhood. Toronto's a good team. Boston's a good team. Tampa's a good team. Florida's in the Stanley Cup final. That's a hard neighborhood to be in. Buffalo, I think, they should be improved. Then if Buffalo's not improved, there's going to be mayhem. There's going to be mayhem there.
Gosh.
I do think they'll be improved, though. I do. And I think Lindy's a much better coach than what people think.
Yeah.
I really do. So my whole thing on this is that the Atlantic Division's really tough. Mm-hmm. And I think Steve Yzerman knows that. And they've had a fair amount of time now to get that going.
I was just going to say, they're sort of at that point, okay, the rebuild's done. Now it's time to move into that next level.
The injury to Larkin this year set them back significantly.
Mm-hmm. Which we saw when he returned.
Yeah, but when they lost him, they were losing a lot of games too. Mm-hmm. And, down the stretch, they just couldn't keep it going. They had stressed and maxed out too many guys. Well, that can't happen next year.
No.
For Detroit. And that's why I think the one thing that covers up some of that is elite goaltending.
It is. And, people will say, well, Linus hasn't won in the playoffs yet. Yeah, but look at his record over the course of the last couple of regular seasons. He wins on a regular basis, and he stole a lot of games for the Bruins. I can tell you that. So he can steal some games for a team like Detroit. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know what's going on if we're going to get Eric here.
I don't want to blow off our questioners. I really don't. If we have questions,
you know what? Let's get to that right now. First off, let's talk about our other sponsor, TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics from around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces, and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. All right, let's get it up. And by the way, we will go back to the sick picks for Betway tomorrow. 4 Game 6. I will have them lined up for you, so be ready for that. But let's get to our questions here on a Thursday afternoon. Renaissance Resistor. Nice avatar, too. You know who that is, Pierre?
No.
It's the guy from Breaking Bad. I don't know if you ever watched that.
No.
Great show. Okay. How important is the first goal? If you got to pass some time on a plane soon, I highly suggest it. How important is the first goal for Game 6 tomorrow?
Important.
It's huge. I think first goal wins. Oh, how about I'm going to put
Florida needs to plant the seed of doubt, and Edmonton needs to get some rock and roll behind them. So it's important. I would say first goal tomorrow is really important.
Yeah, and I'm going to – 1 sec. I just want to double check. Yeah, Eric said, sorry, service is coming down. I will come on with you guys soon. So he apologized. Just want to –
No, that's fine. Stuff happens.
Before we go to the next question, our buddy Jason Logan is busy at work, so he couldn't get away to watch and ask the question in the question section. He did text it to me, Pierre, and I think you should grab this one. If a player gets traded more than once, does that decrease his value?
No, I don't think so. Brendan Shanahan got traded more than once. Didn't decrease his value.
Wayne Gretzky did.
And that's just one example. Mark Messier. No, I don't think so. I don't see it that way. I think
it's very situational, eh?
Yeah, I think age has a lot to do with it. One of the key – this is a part that I don't know if people study this enough. A player that's trending up, a player that's trending down, a player that's dealing with injuries, so you don't know whether he's going to trend up or down. I think there's some merit to statistical analysis on that, so analytics, I guess. But that's one of those two where the eye test matters a lot.
Yeah,
you can see if you go to a rink and you're at the rink enough, you can see if a guy's a gear short or a gear strong. You can see if his release point is still on point or if it's a little bit slow. One of the things you watch for with guys with slower release points, how many times they get shots blocked, how many times sticks get in the lane on them. So that's more of an eye test thing. I know numbers can back it up as well, which I think is important. But a lot of times, I think the best pro scouts, they see when an asset is rising and they also see when an asset is declining.
Okay. Not exactly the same situation, but this just popped in my head, Pierre, and I went back about, 2009. So, man, we're talking 15 years. But I'll never forget it, Pierre, because I remember listening to you on your regular hit on Mitch Melnick when Mark Recchi got traded to the Boston Bruins.
Yep.
And a lot of people were bashing Peter Chiarelli for that, saying he was washed up. What are you doing? And you shot that whole theory down right away on with Melnick, and you said, no, this is going to be one of Chiarelli's best moves. What made you say that at that point?
Because I watched him so much, and I knew, that he still had game. I had skated with him when he was a kid breaking into the league. So I saw that he still had to get up and go that I had witnessed, when I was working with him. And the thing to me was, and this was never brought up. I know I brought it up afterwards, but he changed his training. He started doing hot yoga. Okay. And it was a huge benefit to him, not just cardiovascular wise, but flexibility wise, strength wise, and conditioning wise. It made a big difference for an older player like him. So the first thing I watched when Mark was a left-hand shot that played the right-hand side of the ice, and he was super quick. He wasn't the fastest guy, but he was super quick in tight areas. And I saw he still had that. So that's why I was really comfortable. And the longer you play, the smarter you become. The game becomes easier for you if you study it. And the one thing I know about Mark, and I'm very comfortable telling everybody this, he's a hockey junkie. He's a hockey junkie. He knows every player on every team. He studies which way they shoot, how they like to play. Are they puck possession guys? Are they shoot and retrieval guys? Are they distributor? He knows the league. Yeah. A big part of this whole thing is knowing the league. And it requires hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of watching.
And he did, of course, in the next 2 years after that. He goes on to help them win a cup in 2011. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. Oh, thanks, Ron, for bringing us. He asked me this earlier on Twitter. Was yesterday's trades an indirect message to the NHL saying that the hockey season is going too long, that we need to conduct business even though the cup final is still on? This was really unprecedented. He's right. I thought the same thing. You don't usually see these type of moves during the Stanley Cup final, Pierre. What did you think of that? Was that a somewhat unified message from GMs across the league, or it just happened?
It just happened, but it is long. You got to remember now, the focal point for a lot of these management people, the draft. So if you can do your business before it gets really convoluted at the draft and you can identify a player you really need, you do it. Now, more times than not, that it has not been done during the Stanley Cup final. They're not breaking any rules. Trade moratoriums off. Do your business. Don't worry about what other people do. Take care of yourself. This is where teams get into trouble. I'm telling you right now. You worry about Team X, Team Y, and Team Z, or Team Z if you're on the United States side of the border. I'm just telling you, Jimmy, you got to worry about your own business. Don't worry about other people's business. Worry about your business. And I think Calgary and New Jersey did that yesterday.
Yep. All right. We will see what happens. Maybe we're going to see a few more moves before everybody gets to Vegas next week. I can tell you this, Pierre. I don't know if it's an indication of we might see that. Is I inquired with 3 general managers today who usually have no issues coming on our podcast and said, Jimmy, I'm underwater. That was the common theme.
Well, I think part of that is July 1st is coming up. The draft is coming up. This is a tight schedule.
All in a hurry.
Yeah, this is a tight schedule.
Yep.
So, I remember we won the cup in, I think it was 92. And we actually had to put guys on waivers on a lack of protection list because there was an expansion draft coming. How about that? You win the cup and you tell the guy, oh, by the way, we're putting you on waivers.
I think that happened when Vegas came in, Pierre. I forget who it was. It was a big story, though. I'll have to look back and check it out. I'll find it.
I can just speak to my experience. I don't know what happened in Vegas, but I remember how hard that was having to tell. Guess what?
It's a real one.
Feel bad.
I always wanted that too, Pierre. Okay, so you're a GM. Not to sidetrack here a bit, but I've always wondered this. So this time of year, like you said, everything happens so fast. You get the playoffs in, the draft, free agency, boom. How important do your assistant GMs or your director of pro scouting, guys like that, become, and how much, I guess, how early and how much are you delegating responsibility to them so that when these moments happen consecutively and so fast, you're ready?
The best guys have really qualified people working for them. They're not afraid to delegate. The guys that pick their buddies to work for them and they know their buddies, they probably don't delegate very well and they probably don't do very well at their job. So there are a lot of real competent people in the league. I can tell you that. There are a lot of very, very competent people, smart, really hardworking, industrious. They understand the league, and those are the people that usually do the best.
And thank you to Marco Larabi. He remembered James Neal unprotected after winning the cup with Pittsburgh. There we go. All right, next question. Marco, speaking of Marco, thank you. Don't agents use media to put pressure on teams and vice versa? Yep.
Yeah. We've talked about that a lot. But if you want to do a really good negotiation with somebody that you want to, have a long interest with, you do what Tampa did with Steven Stamkos back in the day. It was Yzerman and Julian Breezeball on one side, and it was Newport Sports Management led by Donnie Meehan on the other side. And there was nothing ever in the paper about this. There was no leaking. There were no cheap shots. There was nothing. Yeah. They handled that negotiation unbelievably well. I remember going into their office afterwards and telling them, Patrick Morris was in that meeting. Craig Oster was in that meeting. Donnie Meehan was in that meeting. Significant brain power on the other side, on the Newport Sports Management side. And I just remember telling them how I really respected that entire negotiation. And it led to a very productive contract. And it really created an unbelievable atmosphere in Tampa. And it led to them being in the Stanley Cup final 3 straight years and winning 2 out of 3.
Nice.
That negotiation was, I'm telling you, people should study that. If you're in the league, that was a critical negotiation. It was handled so professionally by both sides. There might have been stuff away that the press never got or the fans never got. I get it. Sometimes passion gets inflamed. None of it ever got out. And it's because they were, both sides were really professional about it.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing to do in this day and age. All right, next question. Shane Oliver. What's up, Shane? Question. Why would Mike Greer bring in Goudreau knowing he was on the Sharks no trade list?
Because he needs them.
Mm-hmm.
He needs him. He respects him enough as a player and as a person to know that when he was in San Jose, as an undrafted player, by the way, he was a solid citizen, a very important player, and really understood the marketplace and was extremely popular with everybody there. So they need that. We've talked about this forever. I said it the day before. Jimmy knows. The day before they claimed, I said, doesn't surprise me if Gaudreau ends up in San Jose. It doesn't surprise me at all because it's a fit. Yeah. They need to take care of Will Smith. They need to take care of Macklin Celebrini. They need to take care of Henry Thrun. They need to take care of all these young guys coming in there. You know, Ty Dellandrea got picked up too. He's a solid citizen. He's an honorable guy. Don't think that Joe Pavelski, you know, who's friends with the guys in San Jose, don't think that Joe Pavelski wasn't asked about Ty Dellandrea.
Of course.
You know, so look at I get it, but Barkley's got a nice contract. He's going to be taking care of the rest of his life. He doesn't need to worry, and he's going to have an enhanced role. And I bet you when he gets there, he's going to be really happy he went there.
Just on that note, though, too, the whole thing where they kind of circumvented the no trade there. Larry Brooks wrote a column yesterday saying this is the new ruthless Chris Drury because he knows he needs to take this team to the next level. Do you expect more ruthlessness from Chris Drury in the coming weeks?
I don't know which direction he wants to go in. I mean, they've got some guys that maybe they can bring up from the American League. Othman is one of the guys I think we talked about the other day that gets an opportunity. We'll see. You know, what do they do with Rempe next year? They're guys that are coming up through their system that are not bad players. They're actually good players. So I don't know if that means ruthless or not. You know, I still think they have to make some decisions within their top six.
I think there's a certain guy that wears a big letter on his jersey. They're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, there's some decisions, and one of them's on defense that you're alluding to, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't know whether they keep him or move him. I have no idea. Yeah. Couldn't tell you.
It'll be interesting because I think they know they're right there, but they just need something else with their mix to get him over the hump. All right, next question.
That's fair. That's fair to say.
Next question. What do we got? Marco again. Doesn't all the big contracts make Calgary have to retool instead of rebuild? So, yeah, Marco, that's what I was wondering before, and I wanted to ask Eric. You have those guys locked in. May as well try and add around them. They are unmovable. It's a great point. That's kind of what I was going to ask Eric.
Here's one thing I would tell you, that it's changed. You can still buy money. Mm-hmm. You know, you can still eat some parts of that contract that you want to move out. And, you know, I don't know how much of an appetite ownership has in Calgary to maybe eat some of that money, but most of those contracts are unmovable. I would agree. But I mean, Jimmy raised an awesome point. It's the age of those players. Mm-hmm. They're all over 30. Mm-hmm. That's hard.
And listen, I'm not saying right now that they're washed up or anything. I'm just saying as it ages, this contract, they age with it. It's just that's human nature. It is what it is. It's reality.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, they're in a tough predicament. I don't want to be Craig.
What's amazing to me, Jimmy, I just have to say this. I got to get this off my chest. I know I've said it to you before. I think I said. So Calgary had at one time the best line in the NHL. Elias Lindholm, Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk. One guy's in Columbus, one guy's in Florida playing in the final, and one guy's in Vancouver who's about to become a free agent again if they don't keep him in Vancouver. How did that happen?
I don't know.
And you know what? I would have asked Eric this too. I know what the common buzz is. Well, they weren't going to be able to get Johnny signed on a number he would like, and they didn't want to have to negotiate Matthew long term because they were worried about that. What? Players like comfort too, you know.
Yeah.
You know they got something good, that's comfortable.
Well, I mean, if I recall correctly, and we'll go back and look it up, and I'll correct myself tomorrow if I'm wrong, but I recall, Pierre, that there were a lot of stories that came out that Johnny Gaudreau took less in Columbus than he was offered in Calgary. So, it's amazing how things just Things were going so well, so on the rise in Calgary a few years ago, and now look where it is. It's tough. That's why I wonder about that fan base right now, especially with their rival and the rest of the division, as you said, on the rise.
Yep.
All right, next question. Matthew Cesar, question for Pierre. I know that there was a fight at the draft table when the Leafs drafted Marner. Mike Babcock wanted Noah Hannafin. In hindsight, should the Leafs have taken Hannafin? I never heard about that.
I never heard about it either, but I would say this. When you get down to it, Mark Hunter was a scout at the time for Toronto, and they knew London players better than anybody. Hannafin was a kid coming out of St. Sebastian's in the U.S. National Team Development Program before he went to Boston College. They knew Marner better than anybody else, so I don't think so. They had more intel on Marner than anybody. So it's easy to play that game. I mean, I'll give you one. Should New Jersey have taken Cale Makar out of the Alberta Junior Hockey League before he went to UMass, or should they have taken a guy who was playing major junior in Halifax, but he was Swiss-born? New Jersey took the Swiss-born player Nico Hischier because they wanted to have a big center iceman, and eventually Makar went after Miro Heiskanen, by the way. After Miro Heiskanen, and you can argue that at 4 he was the best player in that draft.
I know. What a draft.
But you needed to know that the guy coming out of the Alberta Junior Hockey League, where he played for the Brooks Bandits, you needed to know that he was actually going to be better than the guy playing in the Quebec League that already played with men in Switzerland.
Yeah.
You needed to know that he was going to be better than the guy that had been playing against men in Finland.
Yeah. Hindsight 2020.
The only one that missed there was Nolan Patrick.
Yeah.
That's a different deal.
And it happens. He got slammed with injuries. I mean,
it's different. So you can't. But I understand the question. I just have to answer it in the way I just did to be fair to everybody.
Yep. I'm with you. All right. Next question. Marco Larabe, breaking. The Penguins have signed goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic to a 2-year contract. Contract runs through 25-26 season. Carries it. Capped it at $2.5 million. I like it. Good sign.
Perfect. And they got Bloomquist down in the American Hockey League. And now do they put Tristan Jarry in play or not? I don't know. But, who knows? But that's a good – they were comfortable with Nedeljkovic. Yeah. They were really comfortable with him.
He's serviceable for sure. All right. Thanks for that, Marco. Next question. Marvin Matthews. Tommy Fitzgerald was dangling the number 10 pick. Do you think that pick is still available for a piece, D-man, that New Jersey could use? I think so. Just because he got his goalie doesn't mean it's off the table, I don't think. I don't know.
Depends what he's looking at. He may see we need more offense. He may see that and say, no, there's going to be offensive guys available. Or he may say, my D's not good enough. I need a D, and I'll trade the 10th pick for an established D. You know what? Here, this is, how you talk about your rumor stuff. Yes. I'm not going to say the name. I got a call yesterday about a young defenseman who's really good in the league. Really good.
He's currently in the league.
And he's really good. Okay. And I was told, Pierre, take it to the bank. He's getting traded for a forward who can score. And I said, I'm not taking it to the bank because I don't believe that's going to happen. And we are 24 hours later, and it hasn't happened. So I don't know.
Yeah. Again, everybody, like we said, everything with a grain of salt right now.
Jimmy, here's what I'll say. If it does happen, I will tell you.
Yep.
I'll be the first person to say that's the deal that I was told was going to happen, and I got it wrong. But I don't think it'll happen.
All right. Let's see. And I've got something, but I'm going to run it by you first, Pierre, off the air, and then maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. Just had a little idea on that. All right. Next question. Morantz, gentlemen, would you agree that regardless of the outcome, McDavid should be rewarded with the Conn Smythe? Which player who did not win the cup received the MVP? The first I think of is J.S. Jaguar. I can't think of anyone else.
Ronnie Hextall.
So both goalies, and that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. So he would be the first positional player.
Yeah. So go back to the first part of that question.
Can we pull that up again?
McDavid. Yeah, I think he's winning the Conn Smythe. I do.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a lock. Well, nothing's a lock, but I think it's very, very.
I'd love to see the odds at Betway.
Oh my God! So Pierre, I checked them, and speaking of Betway, don't remind everyone to go there. During the course of that game, I was watching it because it changes. It's live, right?
Right.
And it went from Bobrovsky dropped down to third. Barkov moved up to second, and McDavid went from third to first, like over the span of that game.
I have a hard time believing that he won't be the Conn Smythe trophy.
Yeah. He's the only one right now.
Even if they lose.
He's the only one that is minus money. So in other words, he's minus 150. You have to bet 150 to win 100. Everything else is plus on the board there.
Got it.
It shows you how certain they are that he's going to win.
Right.
All right, next question. Vincent Yoyal, who apparently is using TCS, so we're glad to see that. Hello, gentlemen. Question: how often do scouts ask their GM for picks in future drafts at the expense of the current draft? Is there much talk about the strength of the draft by a team's scouts?
What an awesome question by Vincent. The answer is yes. A head scout will go, and it's not the regional scout, it's the head scout will go to the GM and say, hey, our guy in Saskatoon says they got 4 guys on the Saskatoon Blades that we got to get. And we're not going to be able to get all 4, but if we can get another pick in the second round, if we can get a second and a third, those guys are going to make it. They're going to play. We may have to take one guy a little bit early, but he's going to play. So that happens the smarter staffs, that happens a lot. That's actually a great point by Vincent. Really good.
And Pierre, on that note too, and you've stressed this before, it's very important that GMs or higher management listens in those situations, right? Because sometimes they don't.
I'll never forget. You can go look it up right now. Craig Patrick, we're at the 7th round, I think, in Vancouver, 1990 draft, and Scotty had just been hired. I had just been hired. Greg Malone was a chief scout, and they were looking at their list, and they didn't really like the names of the players on the list. So Scotty looks at me and says, see anybody you want? I said, yeah, there's one guy I know is going to play in the league. His name's Ian Moran. He plays at Belmont Hill High School. He's going to Boston College. He's going to play in the league. I don't know how long he's going to play, but he's going to play. I guarantee you take him, he's going to play.
Yep.
Played 11 years.
Oh, yeah. And it was a great locker room guy.
That was Craig trusting Scotty, and Scotty trusting me, and then Craig just saying, what do you think? I said, yeah, no. He wasn't even on their list.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I love Mo. We got to get Mo on the show, Pierre. Let's make that happen. He's great. What a character, man. I off air, I'll tell you some stories about the 2008 draft in Ottawa with him. All right, next question. NDG PJ. Should NHL introduce a Peter Puck series to teach fans?
So Brian McFarland, who is a starter of Peter Puck, by the way, creator of Peter Puck, he's a proud St. Lawrence hockey alumni, and he was an All-American player. He's a great hockey player.
Yeah,
and forever, ever, phenomenal guy. Forever and ever and ever, he was the voice of reason in Hockey Night in Canada. And I just saw Brian and his wife, I want to say at a Hockey Hall of Fame ceremony.
Okay.
Brian's amazing. He's an amazing man. But no, I don't think we need a Peter Puck to teach us about analytics. But I found that to be very funny. Very good.
I used to have a Peter Puck T-shirt, Pierre.
That was very good. Very good.
Next question. Facts sakes, as they say in Scotland and Ireland. Do you think the Habs and Hughes lean toward a prospect that is more NHL ready as opposed to one that will need more development? That's a good question.
I actually think
that they're developing right now.
They all need some development outside of Celebrini, I think. But yeah, I would say they probably want to have somebody that maybe is a year to a year and a bit away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good point. That's actually a very good point.
Interesting stuff. Well, that's it for our questions, Pierre, as I'm being alerted to right now by producer Shane, who I don't know where they are, Pierre, but it looked pretty fun. They're in watching the Italy-Spain match as we're broadcasting here, somewhere in an Italian section of Montreal, I would imagine. So they're dealing with that. Our good friend Tony Marino, and looks like Spain just won 1-0. So apparently you're going to be watching with a lot of depressed Italian fans, but who will be wallowing in the grappa and the pasta. There we go. Well, I hope they have fun. Thanks to them for doing this. I know they had a lot on their plate today. Thanks to Eric Francis for trying. We will get him on again soon. No worries at all. And thanks to you, the viewers and the listeners, and for your questions. We appreciate it. Reminder, tomorrow we will be on at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, not our usual 4 p.m. slot. 10:30 a.m. Eastern, you'll find us here. And when we have it, we're consulting right now. We're going to work it out probably by the end of the day tomorrow. The schedule for next week, it will be a little different since all of us, Pierre, the production crew in Montreal, and myself, we're all going to be traveling at different points of the week. So we're going to have some different time slots. I will update you as soon as I know. But until then, he's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.